We are T-minus 3 minutes approximately and counting. The orbiter is already going to go on its internal power. In fact, has just gone on to its internal power. They're going to remove that cap from the top of the external tank. That's that liquid hydrogen and oxygen. It's partly keeping pressure down and helping to vent off a little pressure, but it's also warming, isn't it?
There's a heater up there to keep ice from forming on the top of that tank as well. It should be moving away here pretty quick.
And of course, the reason they worry about ice is that ice might form and fall and damage the shuttle itself.
That's correct. The thermal protection system's sophisticated but brittle, so we try to protect it to the best extent possible.
The thermal protection system, in layman's language, are the tiles. That's correct. Which you use to protect yourself when you come back. 2 minutes, 23 seconds and counting. Everything's on automatic. Here's Hugh Harris. Removing this cap, which has
2-minute point in our countdown. T-minus 2 minutes and counting. Liquid hydrogen replenish of the external tank has stopped.
Give you some indication of the interest here at the Kennedy Space Center itself. When Challenger lifted off from here 32 months ago, there were 500 journalists. Today there are 5,000 from all over the world. And as we acknowledged a little earlier on this one occasion, everybody urging America back into space.
Peter, it's beginning to look really different than we saw it yesterday, isn't it? Covered with that tower. She's slowly breaking her bounds with Earth.
Those SRBs, those solid rocket boosters, those 2 outboard white tanks, will just power along with that main engine tank. Those 3 engines power this craft right off at a much straighter up into the sky trajectory than ever before.
We're anticipating a hold here. We just heard at about 31 seconds. The problem has not been defined.
Okay, that's that, I believe that's that, again, that alarm that we were expecting. The oxygen from the suits is leaking into the cabin and bumping this upper limit, and so I suspect we'll pick it up here.
Now, this is the survival suits, which Dick Richards is referring to. They are, beg your pardon, they will now proceed with the count. There will be no hold. We're going to leave this now to Hugh Harris, the voice of launch control.
31 seconds. We have a go for auto sequence start. Discovery's 4 redundant computers have assumed T-minus 23 seconds and counting. The SRB nozzle profile. T-minus 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. We're go for main engine start. 7, 6. We have main engine start. 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
Roger and roll, Discovery. Returns roll program. Houston now controlling.
Oh, baby.
3 engines at 104%.
Why?
Pretty good APUs, 3 good fuel cells. Standing by to begin. Throttle down to 65%. Engines throttling down now to maintain a certain speed as the spacecraft passes through max Q. Engines at 65% now. Adding minus the engines, begin to throttle back up at about 59 seconds. Mark 1 minute, velocity 2,300 feet per second, altitude 5.9 nautical miles, downrange distance 3 nautical miles.
Yeah, we say it before, but the anchor booth at the Kennedy Space Center.
Discovery, go and throttle up.
Maximum speed already.
We're through that problem area with the and the next
Discovery giving a go at throttle up. 3 engines at 104%. Velocity 3,200 feet per second. Altitude 10.8 nautical miles. Downrange distance 8 nautical miles.
a little over 2 minutes, those solid rocket boosters ought to have done their job, and that's been one of the key focal points on this mission.
Glorious day. Those are the long-range tracking cameras.
25 seconds from solid rocket booster separation.
25 seconds. Those outboard rockets will fall off having done their
1
job.
minute 45 seconds. 3 engines at 104%.
We've never had better pictures.
Major milestone coming up.
Velocity 4,800 feet per second. Altitude 20 nautical miles. Downrange distance 19 nautical miles. Standing by for solid rocket booster separation.
There it is. Separated.
There they go. Get it go.
She's on the tank. She's pushing 4,000 miles an hour right now, and that was a key point.
Solid rocket boosters
Get
have
rid of those
separated.
solid rocket boosters which caused Challenger's disaster.
Someone did their job
20
right.
seconds. 3 engines still running.
And they will return to Earth. They are recoverable. They are recoverable. They'll come down by parachute. Now being powered by that main external tank, pushing it, driving it towards orbit.
3 APUs still running at normal speed. 3 good fuel cells.
This trajectory, Peter, was exceptionally high
Call-ups
trajectory.
here shortly from the Capcom about the capability to reach transatlantic
What you call a
sites.
conservative trajectory in some cases, but they haven't got an enormous payload this time. This is a
200 feet per
trajectory
second.
or a flight
Altitude 41
path
nautical
designed
miles.
for
Downrange
safety.
distance
They
60
used their
nautical
extra
miles.
energy to get altitude quicker, is what it amounted to.
39B.
How quickly things change. We got about another 5 minutes to go.
Should have that. Lose one of those three engines. Some corrections. Malone's failing. We have to change that. Malone's failing.
They're coming to 2 plus 4 minutes now.
There it is right there. 2-engine Malone
Call-up
capability.
indicating cancel
So even if they
discovery
lose an
may,
engine-
may be able to achieve a transatlantic abort at Moroni if that were to become necessary. Return
Go ahead,
status,
Jim.
mission control positions, all report go.
If they lose an engine now, they can land in
3
space.
engines
They
still
can continue on,
104%,
that's right.
velocity 7,600 feet per second, altitude 53 nautical miles, downrange distance 107 nautical miles. Standing by for negative return.
Take a look at those figures just on the side of your screen and you get some enormous sense of speed now. They're traveling at about 5,000 feet per second.
And ultimately, of course, they'll be pushing 17.8.
Negative return.
That means negative return back to the landing site.
That
Now
call-up
they're going
indicates
8,000
Discovery now
feet
can
per
no longer
second.
turn around and return to the launch site in the event of an abort. 4 minutes, 20 seconds, velocity 8,700 feet per second, altitude 59 nautical miles, downrange distance 148 nautical
That's
miles.
a great sight.
What this means, if they had lost an engine now, they can still land safely in Africa.
Very soon we're going to achieve orbit capability there.
And that means that they
Listen
can
to that
lose
crowd.
engines and still push themselves into
correct.
orbit because they've got so much velocity at this point.
Peter, how do you feel? You've been asking that all day. How do you feel?
That's fantastic. Fantastic.
Like banjo.
You could feel it in your bones here a while ago. It was going to go. There was no question about
Call-up indicates Discovery could reach and abort to orbit on 2 engines if that were to become necessary.
The further they go,
5
the more
minutes, 3 seconds,
capability.
velocity 10,300 feet per second, altitude 65.7 nautical miles, downrange distance 203 nautical miles.
it. Still picking up speed.
Very quickly. They're really hauling the mail at this point in time. There's very little atmosphere to slow them down. They're getting lighter because they're burning the fuel, and those engines are still putting out just as much thrust. Just
Also,
as much
initially,
power.
most of the launch trajectory was vertical to get out of the atmosphere, and now it's more horizontal to go for speed.
When they get into orbit, of course, they'll go around the world at 17,000 miles per hour.
Once every 90 minutes. Sunrise and the sunset.
Preston Miko, Group Banjul 109.
Crew given their press to main engine cutoff call, indicating they can proceed to normal main engine
As they
cutoff.
push for orbit now, let's go back and relive it because it was tremendously exciting here. There's still an enormous cloud of smoke in the sky, but here is the launch scene from various perspectives here at the Space Center.
Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
Roger roll, Discovery.
Crew confirms
Once you
roll
light those
program,
solid
Houston
rocket
now
boosters,
control.
they do not stop burning. You see the way she rotates. She flies up on her back,
3 engines at
going
104%.
straighter than usual.
For some reason, we always seem to go in orbit on our back. We've been doing that since the early days of Mercury.
Fuel cells.
Now, let's take a look at it from yet another angle.
2, 1,
That's what we saw.
0, and liftoff. Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
Roger, roll.
That's what it looks like from our anchor booth, and you get some sense. Look at the top of your screen there. Look at the sense of speed. Now look at one more.
3 engines at 104%.
Main engine start. 7, 6. Start. 3.
They're now 60 miles above the Earth, accelerating into towards orbit.
And liftoff. Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the
They have even
tower.
a thing around here called solid rocket booster fallout, because that
Crew confirms roll program. Houston
flame that they
controlling.
put down there into the launch pad, which now, by the way, will go back and be reused again, just causes an enormous ruin, stops with cars all over the neighborhood.
There's a lot of metal, I believe, aluminum perhaps, flakes in there that get pretty hot come out of there.
Standing by.
Start. 7, 6.
And here, one more look
Start.
from another angle.
2, 1.
The engines are running perfectly now.
And liftoff.
Everything's right on the line.
Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
Roger, roll, Discovery.
Crew confirms roll program. Houston now controlling.
Tremendous, tremendous smoke here, which still lingers over the Space Center on this gloriously hot day. It's up around 86 degrees now. We're back to our animation now, because the next event will be the main engine cutoff in about 35 seconds from now, and then there's no doubt whatsoever.
Mark 8
we can make
minutes.
work.
Velocity
They
22,500
can
feet
get
per
to orbit
second.
with 2
Altitude
engines
59
now.
nautical miles. Downrange distance 619 nautical
We can
miles.
even get to orbit with one engine.
Probably with one engine or so close.
When does the main tank come off?
Approximately 17
About
seconds
82%
after main engine
throttles
cutoff.
now.
Right, and then it
3 Gs on
falls and burns up in the atmosphere.
That's correct.
Tumbles back in. That's the one piece they cannot recover. And then they will...
seconds away from main engine cutoff. Velocity 24,600 feet per second. Altitude 59 nautical miles. Downrange distance 700 nautical miles. Standing by for main engine cutoff.
700 miles in 8 minutes.
Main engine cutoff confirmed. Discovery's 3 main engines have now shut down as programmed.
And still, Discovery drives forward.
It's the last big maneuver.
Discovery, nominal MECO, ohms 1 not required.
Well, now they're in an orbit, but not completely a circular orbit. They have a low altitude of around 30, or a low perigee of around 35 miles an hour. So they're going to the high point of the orbit at about 160 miles.
That ohms 1 is not required. They'll be at
They'll
ohms
fire
2.
their engines at that point in about 40 minutes to bring up the low part of the orbit, and then there'll be 160 circular.
Let's talk for just a second when we come back about now what this means. America is back into manned space flight, and we will be back in a second to say what it means for the future of the space program and the men and women who fly in it. We'll be right back.
Coverage of the return to space, the launch of Discovery, brought to you by AT&T.
We heard nothing and felt nothing in the cabin when that separated.
But by far the most crucial event of the day was this morning's lunch. More from John Zarella in Florida.
Here now, Peter Jennings.
Edwards Air Force Base in California. 200,000 people were there by 5 o'clock this morning, Pacific time, to see Discovery come home. And Discovery is on its way home. It has already been through that blackout that takes it from orbit down into the Earth's atmosphere, and the reconnection and the telemetry detail to Hawaii is good. The cabin is cooling off. The auxiliary power units on board are working, which means that in just a few minutes from now, this Space Shuttle, this aircraft, is going to become an aircraft. As we take a look at Edwards, let's reintroduce our players for this extraordinary launch and mission that we have seen. Gene Cernan, last man to walk on the moon. Gene, thanks for being with us.
Pleasure, Peter.
We were just sitting here talking as they'd come in the atmosphere. Take the orbiter up, if you would, for a moment, and just show us very briefly what it looks like to fly it down through and into the atmosphere.
Well, of course, this assumes they've slowed down, done their deorbit burn, which they have, and they maneuver the spacecraft, assuming the Earth is below us, they maneuver the spacecraft in a very high attitude, high angle of attack. And let me point it like this. And they then, the atmosphere begins to slow them, and a cooling is created by this tremendous force of friction that occurs under the under the wing of the airplane. They are now actually out of the spacecraft realm of flying. It's
an airplane now.
It's an airplane now. They have enough air surrounding those wings where they can literally begin to utilize all the control surfaces that we're familiar with on airplanes.
Well, out in Edwards Air Force Base in California now is Joe Allen, who is himself a former shuttle astronaut. Joe, as we wait for the first sight of Discovery, which we hope we'll pick up in a few minutes from now, we'll perhaps put our clock up on the screen so people can see exactly how long it is until touchdown. What was it like to come down through and into the atmosphere again? Is it noisy? Is it rough?
Peter, it's of course wonderfully exciting. It's very quiet to begin with, and it's not rough at all. It's silent and smooth. However, as the spaceship comes into the atmosphere, you begin to hear some noise. You see some light outside, even though you're flying through the blackness of space on the dark side of the Earth. And you begin to hear a sound. You can literally hear the wind whistle around the edges of the orbiter. It's a beautiful experience.
And then you get captured by the atmosphere, and once captured, you're coming home no matter what you want to do, right?
That's correct, and Gene's exactly right. Right now, the crew is flying an airplane, no longer a spaceship. They're in the airplane Discovery. They're flying many times the speed of sound. We'll cross the coastline in a few moments, and shortly we should see them here.
Peter, they're doing it as a glider. They've been gliding for the last several thousands of miles across the Pacific.
Yeah, you put your finger on the key thing. This may be an aircraft, but it hasn't got any power.
You only get one chance.
Let's go back to Edwards, where Mort Dean is on station. And Mort, give us some sense of the mood out there, if you would.
Well, I think the mood here on the platform is that the conclusion of this flight is a white knuckle time. As you said, it's a glider coming down, and this ship has one and only one shot at a landing. It can't go around again, and it's coming in, Joe, at an incline that is up to 20 times more steep than that of a commercial airliner.
It's like being in a dive of sorts, and you look at, of course, you can see beautifully because there's 6 windows out the front, and you see the runway coming right up at a fairly high rate of speed. In fact, they'll fly the final at 350 miles an hour.
And Peter, earlier Dan Brandenstein was flying the shuttle trainer around here, just making some test approaches to the landing area, and he radioed up to Commander Rick Houck, it's going to be a very easy landing for you, and Houck radioed back, easy for you, perhaps, and I think that told it all.
We said a little while ago, as a matter of fact, before we actually came back on the air, that we're many Americans are coming home tomorrow. Of course, the 5 on board the shuttle, and we're also watching the Syrian capital of Damascus today, because in about an hour and a half, or 2 hours from now, we are told that one American, or perhaps an Indian who is resident in the United States, will be released by their captors in Lebanon. There is a group of Americans, 3 Americans, Alan Steen, Robert Polhul, and Jesse Turner, who were captured on January the 24th in 1987. They all were associated with Beirut University College in Beirut. And Mittalswar Singh, you see his picture down on the right, who's an Indian who's a resident of the United States. One of them, we are told, is going to be released by their captors to the Syrians sometime in the next hour and a half or 2 hours, and we'll keep you up to date. Trailers that had come out. Who's shown up?
Well, all sorts of people, and they were here last night and early this morning when Joe and I came onto the base. There were long lines of all kinds of cars and trailers and people all across the country. Many have come here for vacations and decided to come onto the base and take a look at the return of the shuttle.
What's the weather like?
The weather is almost perfect. There are some light, thin clouds, but my astronaut friend, or former astronaut friend, Joe Allen, suggests that that's no problem.
It's a perfect flying day.
Joe, explain, maybe you and Gene can tell us both in the experience of having come back, you more specifically, because, in fact, in an ideal world, you would like to return to Florida, because landing at Edwards Air Force Base adds about $1 million to the bill on any shuttle. Tell folks why you come down out there.
Well, you can, Peter, you can tell just by looking around. There's great margin for error out here. If for some reason the guidance didn't bring you right into the precise runway, you have many miles on either side you could vary. And psychologically, maybe it's a bit easier for the pilots. I would guess that's the main reason. The other, of course, is the weather.
Yep.
You know,
that's what I was going to say, Peter, the weather. Yeah. If you remember how quickly after launch the weather changed within 15 or 20 minutes, I don't believe we could have launched last week. And we cannot predict with any real precise capability what the weather will be at Kennedy. We're out here at Edwards, sun shining almost all year long.
Gene, you did bring up a point, because people didn't see it, but at the Cape last week, just after, remember that Discovery launched in extraordinary weather, just extraordinary weather, and within an hour, I guess, the place was all clouded in. There's also a safety reason, though, as requested in this mission, isn't the Rogers Commission said that the shuttle should continue to land at Edwards Air Force Base until this new modifications on the equipment were tested out.
Well, it's an added burden because you have to then transport the shuttle back to Kennedy, where instead of landing at Kennedy, you can just tow it over into the barn and get it ready for the next flight. But I think the burden is well worth the cost and the effort and the time it takes, at least for a while.
They slap it onto the back of a 747 and fly it back to Kennedy.
That's
Mort,
not
you wanted to say
either.
something.
Well, Peter, I think it's worth saying that the astronauts would prefer to land here for all the reasons suggested earlier, and I think it's good to keep in mind that this really is a test vehicle, and this landing will be a test of new brakes, new steering processes, and new landing gear. So the test of the shuttle continues even this morning.
Just to go ahead, John.
Here, might mention that Rick has, who'll be flying in the final approach, has landed here before as a pilot, but as the commander, he's never landed here at Edwards. He has landed in Florida, and I was there during that landing. It was very, very smooth indeed, but the weather was a little bit foggy and got foggier after we had landed.
Joe, let me interrupt you because there's our first view of it with 7 minutes, 28 seconds to landing. We can now see the orbiter, which is going to be coming over the coast between Los Angeles and Santa Barbara. Gene was deciding to tell us exactly how a few minutes ago and said, and you can get a hint of it there, that it sort of slaloms down the sky, flying first to the left and first to the right. In order to what, Gene? To keep control and speed down, eh?
Well, control, this is an energy management problem. They're trying to transfer the energy of speed and altitude into a precise landing point, and that's what Rick's doing right now. If I'm not mistaken, he's well over 90,000 feet, however, and by the time they cross the field, they're still close to 50,000. So you can see how much altitude they keep as they make that, and how steep that trajectory will be as they make that final approach to landing.
Take air data to GNC only.
GNC only, we'll go.
And there's our first affirmation, at least for us, that all communications are A-OK. This mission is under the control of the Johnson Space Center now in Houston, Texas, which has controlled it ever since it lifted off from the tower in Kennedy. Lynn Sure is there. Lynn, what does it look like technically from there?
It looks quite as perfect from here as it does from there, Peter. I'd like to point out that Rick Houck, the commander, is wearing that new 70, 80-pound pressure suit, which is an added constraint to them. And these are test suits. They are trying to decide if they want to use them. He gave us a little how-to yesterday in the air-to-ground and the video. It's very, very bulky for them right now, and Rick is sitting there not only with all the things that Mort and Joe and Gene and you have talked about, but he's got this extra suit on, and he's going to have to decide when they get back whether it works and whether they want to wear it. He mentioned yesterday in a press conference he's not sure if, well, he wants to look at it in the future and see. So Rick Houck has landed the orbiter at Kennedy, which, as I understand it, is a lot trickier than landing at Edwards Air Force Base, but now he's landing at Edwards on that wide lake bed, but he does have this bulky suit, which is something to think about.
Well, Lynn, you've led us into a discussion of this mission because, in fact, when I was looking back over the mission for the last couple of days, if there'd been any glitches, Gene Cernan, the only one I found was this comment from Rick Houck, who said there would be, quote, discussions with the folks on the ground about the survival suits. It's very clear they haven't enjoyed wearing them.
Well, it's a case of trading off the risk for the encumbrances during a normal flight. It is very uncomfortable. It's very difficult. We had a problem that almost delayed the launch, which was that simple circuit breaker that was tied solely to those suits that they hope they never have to use.
A 5-amp fuse.
5-amp
Our
fuse.
energy status is right on the money, which means Discovery is coming right down the exact entry and glide slope that is pre-programmed and preferred. Her velocity now 1,300 feet per second. She's at about 62,000 feet.
They're still greater than the speed of sound.
About 32
here.
miles away from touchdown on runway 17 at Edwards Air Force Base.
Gorgeous looking.
It's fantastic camera picture, and they are moving well over Mach 1 at this point in time. We'll probably get a sonic boom that'll blow little Joe out of his seat down there.
In fact, Joe and Mort, that's exactly how people are going to know, first of all, that the orbiter is back because of a couple of sonic booms, right?
Absolutely. It's almost as if the orbiter were applauding its safe return to Earth.
Where she will intersect the heading alignment circle. She'll be making a left overhead turn.
There's some precise flying required here, Peter, because as I said earlier,
it's 249 degrees. They'll be shooting for
it's an energy management situation. He is a glider, and he has to transfer the energy in terms of altitude. You know that
she will touch down
height above the ground, and the speed he has, and dissipate it at the right place and under the right conditions and at the right rate, so that he touches down at the end of that runway. Now, Edwards is great.
Peter, we can see it right overhead here at Edwards now. It's just beginning to make a turn.
And although Joe says there's lots of runway out there for safety, being a pilot, he wants to put it on the end.
Velocity 871 feet per second. Verge of intersecting the heading alignment circle.
Oh!
There he is. That's the second sonic boom there, and of course those are people on the ground. You can hear them very clearly telling us that the shuttle is now in sight. It appears, of course, to be dropping like a stone in many cases.
Of course, Discovery is now on the hack.
Looks to be going straight down.
The circle. She's
well, it's in a bank. It's a left-hand turn. It's descending very steeply, turning back in towards the runway, and it is descending very rapidly. It's sort of like a bathtub with wings.
Discovery Houston, recommend vector transfer to the BFS.
Translation, please, Joe.
Must be seated 5 miles from the crowd, and you can hear the crowd cheering on our platform. They heard the boom and see it very clearly, as do we.
Now, Dick Richards, who was with us, one of the shuttle astronauts the other day, said you could actually fly this thing down by computer. Is that correct?
It was designed to fly hands off all the way down to the ground. But
That's correct. I think, Gene, he will fly it, the computer will fly it until he turns about onto final, and then Rick will take control stick steering, we call it, and he'll fly it straight down.
So at the moment, the shuttle is still on automatic pilot in essence.
Midway around her left overhead.
Yes.
Of course, the next major thing as he straightens out and heads in towards the runway is that landing gear. And that's a major component that has to function.
This looks like an airstrip. Of course, it really is the desert, and they've actually painted black strips on the runway, on the desert to identify it as a runway. You guys have been talking about how good it is for a landing base. In fact, it rained out there once, and everybody got terribly nervous that the shuttle would stick in the sand, become mud. But today, it is absolutely perfect in all respects.
Peter, the Air Force and NASA has an acronym for everything, and it is said today that all the FODs have been cleared from the runway, foreign objects and debris. They've done a sweep of the runway.
Remember my first recovery of the first shuttle, you can almost feel the presence. There's something happening as it came to this point.
Winds are calm. Looks real pretty.
Here it is.
3,000 feet, Discovery will execute her pre-flare maneuver. She's now about 6,500 feet, descending at a rate of 180 feet per second. Speed 550 feet per second.
$1.7 million miles since she left Cape Canaveral 4 days ago.
Gear her down. The gear down and locked. The report from Mission Control.
All right.
Main gear touchdown. Commander out now rotating the nose down, standing by for nose gear and touchdown.
They don't come any better.
Act like a baby when you let that nose come down.
Now, one of the problems they had in earlier landings was applying the brakes on. And everything looks just to have been smooth as silk here. In the distance, the national anthem.
stop.
Roger, wheel stop, Discovery. Welcome back. A great ending to the new beginning.
Thanks a lot.
And so Discovery sits at Edwards Air Force Base on this glorious day, and we listen to the final few bars.
This is Discovery. Heavy read. Thank you very much, and I read you loud and clear.
Discovery Houston 1 Delta.
Roger.
We'd like the secondary controller to off, please.
The crew will be out in just a few minutes, and we'll be back right after this message. People there. Let's listen now as they talk to ground control at Edwards. Work has been done at Cape Canaveral, the Kennedy Space Center, and at the Johnson Space Center. They are now back, and what an enthusiastic welcome you heard them get. At the very first sight, there was a burst of applause from that large crowd, and it was sustained applause until
Mr.
Discovery...
Control, Houston, the crew now will be engaging in post-landing procedures to safe the orbiter and prepare her for the gotten ready to be towed to the hangar at drive. Our unofficial time for main gear touchdown, mission elapsed time. Mission elapsed time 4 days, 1 hour, 0 minutes, 8 seconds. Our unofficial time for nose wheel gear touchdown, 1 day. Correction, 4 days, 1 hour, 0 minutes, 18 seconds. And we show wheel stop unofficially at 4 days,
There
1
you get
hour,
some sense
0
of what the
minutes,
pilot
57 seconds.
and the commander had to look at as they came in, that enormous piece of desert on which they landed today.
The orbiter safety
And they now just simply sit there as we look at it from a helicopter.
A series of events that will take about 15
And
minutes
we
or
can
so.
have a look
Expect
again
to have
now
stairs,
at